it's just endless poor form. I'm never going to get out of this poor performance. This poor run of form is in your control and it's in your hands to be able to pull yourself out of it. Are you actually training hard enough? When you go through the motions at training, you will just fall into a trap. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. I'm Lewis Hatchett of Mind Strong Sport. I'm a mindset mental performance coach, former professional athlete, master's student in performance psychology at Bangor University, host of the Raising Your Game podcast, and creator of the Mind Strong Sport app. That is a lot. Today, we are talking about 7 ways in which you can get out of poor form. So if you find yourself in a performance slump, and yes, we're talking about sport, although it might help you in your dating scene, maybe not. I wouldn't really know. For me, it's just endless poor form. Anyway, let me know in the comments if this does help you out in whatever way this will, but it's intended in sport. So if you find that you are struggling with poor form, you've got a run of bad performances, this is going to be the video for you. But before we get started, be sure to like this video if you do find value from it. Hit the subscribe button so you become a subscriber of the channel, and then hit the bell so that you don't miss out on any new videos that come your way. You'll be one of the first to know if you do that. Anyway, let's get into this. All right, before we get going into ways in which you can get out of poor form, it's good to know why we have these performance slumps. So the more common reason is you've just had a bad run of results. Things haven't gone your way, and you're just not getting the results you have. You've maybe not hit the baseline of performance that you usually do. You have a set amount of performances or a set standard of performance that you have, and you're just not reaching that. You're not hitting that target. You might be returning from injury. You could have had a period out and you might be coming back and not have any form because you haven't had the practice, you haven't had the game time, you haven't had the competition time, whatever it is. Or just in general, you might be going through a period where you're not feeling yourself. Any of these reasons and others could be causing you a performance slump. Now, when we do get a performance slump, it makes us feel a range of different things. Your emotions could be from just overall stress, frustration, anger. You might find you've got anxiety, self-doubt, but you're going to have a loss of motivation. You're going to feel like you might even have a loss of identity. I was a certain type of player. I performed at a certain level and now I'm not, and that is not my identity. All of this will lead to a range of overthinking that could be happening, and you may be feeling like this is just never going to end. I'm never going to get out of this poor performance. I'm never going to drop this performance, and I'm never going to get back to where I was. And it can be a very negative spiral that we get ourselves into. So that's what we might be feeling. And before we do go into ways to come out of this negative thinking, it's worth just acknowledging a few things. Having a poor run of form is so natural in sport. It is what all the best have. Every elite athlete that you might know will have at some stage faced a performance slump. They will have dipped in performance. You cannot maintain a high level of performance throughout your entire career. So it is natural to have one. Secondly, is it a performance slump that you're going through, or is it just a few poor performances, and maybe are those performances down to good performances from others, your opposition? Or even could it be bad luck? Now, I would just put a pin in the bad luck one, because if you think it's bad luck and you start to use that one quite a lot, it could lead to an excuse. It's a high possibility that if you start talking about it being an excuse, that you become complacent and you lean on that one quite a lot. So if you think it's bad luck, it might be a one-off chance, but if you're using that more often than not, chances are it's going to be you. So just to note that. Another one is if you have a lack of skill or capability. So if you're not fully able or skilled enough to do the level of performance that you're trying to do. So if you are at a high level of performance, but you haven't got that skill set to do it, that could be why you're having a poor run of form. So you may need to go and work on that, and we'll get to that. You might have also just lost your mojo. Maybe you've just lost the love of the sport or the competition or the event that you're doing, and your mojo's just gone. You've really had a loss of motivation. Check in with that. Check in with reasons as to why you're doing what you're doing. Have you lost focus as to why you're doing what you're doing? That could be a reason why you've lost this poor run of form. You might also be doing a load of different things. Are you doing anything different? Are you playing in a different way? Are you trying to perform in a different way? Are you being careful, or are you being effortful? Are you maybe putting in too much effort or not enough effort? If you're not sure, you want to look back to your strong performances and you want to look to those for some clarity as to what good performances look like for you. All right, so how do we get out of this poor performance and drag ourselves out of this pit of misery? And believe me, I know it's a pit of misery because I've been in it, I've suffered in it, and let's get you out with 7 ways to help you come out of poor form. Now, number 1 is having a problem-solving mindset. This is about moving away from having a victim mentality that will not help you. If we set ourselves up with that, then we're doomed to fail. Okay, so we want to shift our way over to wishful thinking and away from this world-ending mentality. So recognize that there are things that you can control. There are many things that you control, and that will help you reduce your stress. That will help you realize that this poor run of form is in your control and it's in your hands to be able to pull yourself out of it. The other part of it is to set your expectations correctly. You might be setting your expectations too high, to an unrealistic standard. You might be trying to expect good performances that you've had in the past, or maybe even some of your best performances, and think that they're just going to continue. And then from that standard, and when you've not met it, it's dropped your motivation. You've been frustrated, stressed, anxious, doubting because you haven't met that standard. Now, you want to lower your expectations, but not too low so that you don't have any unmet goals. So too high is unrealistic, too low, you don't have any met goals. So you got to set your expectations that every game is different, every competition is different, and maybe reaching the performances that you have in the past all the time isn't the expectation to be setting. So set that. Number 2 is check your training. So are you being specific enough in your training? Are you actually training hard enough? Is there something that you can do? Can you have a clear focus in what you're doing? Are you developing the necessary skills that you need to have in your training? Don't go through the motions. When you go through the motions at training, you will just fall into a trap of a perpetuate cycle of just doing what you've always done, and you'll just end up being where you've always been. So look at not going through the motions and break down the skills that you need to execute into something that you know you can focus on and stay in control of. So when you break it down in training, that's the thing that you're going to focus on when you go into competition. Number 3 is introduce some form of pressure. Now this leads in from your training, and I've done a video before on how you can add pressure into your training. Now you might be thinking, but Lewis, I've already got a ton of pressure on me. I don't need any more pressure thrown on me in this scenario. I know, but this is just adding something in when you're training so that you know you are training hard enough, and when you can face a level of pressure that you have learned to deal with, and you've learned to deal with that challenge in your skill, in your sport, it will build your confidence. Now, like I've mentioned in previous videos, you're not going to do this every session. That'll lead to burnout, but you want to just add it in maybe once a week, maybe once every 10 days, a session that is really intense, ramps up the intensity. And from that, you'll know that you can handle that pressure, and you'll be able to learn how to deal with that pressure and build confidence from dealing with that in your training. So go and add a little bit of pressure, intensity into what you're doing. Number 4, having a clear game plan. You might not be focusing on the process. You might be focusing too much on the result. Is your game plan the effective game plan for what you're going into? Perhaps you're going into every game or competition thinking that each time I compete, I'm going to use the same game plan. Now, no competition, no match, no game is ever the same. All games, opposition are all different and require slightly different tailored approaches in a certain style and game plan that you usually have. So if you're thinking that I'm going to turn up to a competition and use that same game plan over and over again and get the result that I want in changing environments, that's not really clever thinking. It's wishful thinking. And what you want to try and do is have an effective, adaptable game plan that you can constantly change and adapt depending on the scenario. So just check in whether you have a clear game plan and also whether you have the correct and effective game plan for the situation that you're going in. All right, up next, stop making comparisons. This is where you're focusing on the success of others and you're setting new expectations based on what others are doing. If you are focusing on your own performance, you are focusing on your growth. And any energy that you're spending focusing on others and how they're going whilst you're in poor form is energy wasted in trying to get you out of this poor form, this performance slump. So spend time focusing on yourself, your own performances, even if the next performance that you have is a slight increase and a slight improvement. Use that as a win rather than comparing that small win to someone else's much bigger success comparative to where you are. So stop comparing yourself to others. Up next is building coping strategies. Now, this is a range of different things, and this can start off with mental skills like imagery, visualization, self-talk, relaxation, And the best place to start that is by using the Mindstrong Sport app. With meditations, exercises, mindset courses, and so much more, it is the mental gym to help you strengthen your greatest skill, your mind, as an athlete. Download it via the iOS and Android app stores and head over to the link in the description so that you can get started right now. Other options include things like setting your goals. So setting goals helps you keep that progress, helps you readjust, maybe resetting your goals and restarting all over again could really help you get out of that performance slump. You might find that your old goals aren't working for you and you need new ones. So resetting your goals. And another is to reframe the experience. Look at this as a chance to build resilience, maybe build your character, see the type of person that you could become coming out of this performance slump. Someone who overcomes these challenges, overcomes these hurdles and doesn't fall victim to it and find themselves just downward spiraling and then being never seen again. So see it as an opportunity rather than a challenge and a threat. And then finally, get support. Now, this could be support with working with a coach that you currently have, or maybe you find a coach externally. You find a new coach, a mentor. It might be a mental performance coach. It could be a counselor. It could be a therapist. It could be anything. You can go to work with a coach or an external coach to help guide you and give you the support through this period. Also, work with other players. It could be players that are teammates. It might even be opposition or just people that you know who have perhaps been in this similar situation. Lean on their experiences. If they've been through it, find out how they got through it. And others, such as friends. You can go to your friends and then lighten the load. There's nothing better than actually taking the pressure off by having a little bit of a joke about it. I know for me, when I joked about being in poor form, it lightened the load and it just helped me see the light at the end of the tunnel and realize that it's actually not as bad as I think. There are far worse things in life than just having a poor run of form in sport. So using a bit of humor, using a bit of comedy, having a joke with your friends, and they'll be there to support you, help you see that you will eventually come out of it. If you do these things or some of these things, no doubt you will find your form again. You will get yourself out of this poor run of form. You will get yourself out of that pit and you will get yourself back into performing at your best and having some success. So there you have it, some ways in which you can hopefully get yourself out of a poor run of form and get yourself back to success. If there's something that you've used in the past that I haven't mentioned, throw it in the comments. If you think I've missed something, throw that in the comments. And if you are an athlete that wants to take your mental performance and your mental skills seriously, then you definitely want to watch this video next.